When calculating volume, if we know the area of one of the planes, then we simply need to multiply that by the depth in order to find the volume. So for example, at the top here, I've drawn a cuboid, and we know that to find the area of the shaded section there, we would need to multiply the height by the width. Once we had that area, we simply need to multiply it by the depth to find the volume. Okay, so let's imagine, I'm going to use really simple numbers here. Let's imagine the width is 2 and the height is 3. To work out the area of the shaded section, we would do 2 multiplied by 3, which gives us 6. Let's imagine we're working in centimeters, so 6 centimeters squared. So if that area is 6 centimeters squared, let's say the depth is 4, just for the sake of argument, we would end up doing 6 multiplied by 4, which would give us a volume of 24 centimeters cubed. Okay, so notice when we've moved from area, which was in squared, to volume, we have moved into cubed. Okay, so as I said on the email, if we know the area of a plane, for example, this arrow-like shape on 1A, it tells us we have an area of 12 centimeters squared. Now, we don't need to break down that shape at all. We just need to look at the depth. Okay, so for number 1, we know that area. We simply need to multiply it by the depth, which we're told is 6. And so we have a very simple calculation of 12 times 6 to work out the volume, which would be in centimeters cubed on this occasion. All of the question 1 questions are quite similar, and with that bit of information, you should be able to do them quite easily. Question 2, we find that we sometimes have triangles for the plane. We sometimes have parallelograms, like C, or we sometimes have trapezoids, like F. Okay, so if we are going to be able to calculate these, it doesn't actually give us the area of those planes. We need to calculate it. So we need to remember, first of all, and we're thinking of our area work from last week, we're thinking the area of a triangle is the width, or the base, multiplied by the vertical height, and then we divide that by 2. Okay, we need to remember that. Once we have worked out the area of that triangle, we will have no problem calculating the volume. We simply need to multiply it by the depth. For the parallelogram, you will have known from the work on Friday that to calculate the area of a parallelogram, you do the width, or the base, times the vertical height. Again, once you've got that information, you simply need to multiply it by the depth. Vertical height is the straight up height. You must remember that, not the length of these angles that we have on here. Or if we were to look at F on here, let's look at F. Down here we've got a trapezoid shape. Now, a trapezoid, what we need to do is we need to take one of the lengths, the other length, and add them together. So here we've got one at 10 millimeters and one at 6 millimeters. Together they would be 16 millimeters. Then we need to divide that by 2. Okay, that would give us 8 millimeters before we multiply it by the vertical height. So the vertical height is 5, so that would give us 8 times 5, which would mean that the area of this would be 40 millimeters squared. We then multiply it by the depth there, which is 11 millimeters squared, to get our volume. Okay, so all of these question 2 questions should then be possible with those bits of information. Okay, but we do need to remember, how do we calculate the area of a triangle? How do we calculate the area of a parallelogram? These are both things that you have done already. And then a new bit of information, how to calculate the area of a trapezoid, or new for a lot of you. And if you've forgotten what I said, you can look up the formula for how to do that. So you can find that on Google. Now, question 3 questions, I'm not going to give you much help with, but what I would say is you are going to have to break down these shapes, okay, to first calculate the area, or surface area as it calls them on the sheets, before again multiplying by the depth. Just looking at question 1, it's not incredibly hard, but what you would need to see there, or A rather, is that we need to break this down into separate shapes if we're going to calculate the area. We're also going to need to move some of these measurements across. So I've got 2 millimeters at the back here. To be honest, it's more helpful for me if that 2 is up here. And well, you're going to need to do a fair old bit of work. I'm actually looking at this, and as I look at it, I'm thinking, wouldn't it be easier if I broke the shape up that way, where the darker line is instead? Then I know I've got 4 times 2 for the area of this. And then for this, actually, I don't have to go a long way to find what dimensions I need to multiply together. Again, once I've worked out that area, I don't have a problem working out the volume. But for B, you're looking at, well, you're looking at different shapes for a number of them. If we look at D, we start to see we're going to need to work out the area of a rectangle and the area of a triangle by first breaking them down to then find the volume. Hopefully that will help you. I would expect everyone to be able to do the question 1 questions. I'd expect you to do most of the question 2 questions, but you may find these a lot harder. The question 3 questions, if you don't get there, don't be too concerned. This is hard work. Okay, thank you.